Now, Raila Odinga, Kenya's longtime opposition leader and former prime minister, has died while receiving medical treatment in India. He collapsed during a walk and was reported to have suffered a cardiac arrest. Odinga was a towering figure in Kenyan politics. Many admired him as a voice for democratic reform, even as he lost several presidential bids, and his death has left the country shocked and grieving. When his body was flown back to Nairobi, thousands turned up for public viewing, and the crowd became uncontrollable in places. People pushed past barriers, and police used tear gas to fire shots in order to restore order. Reports say several people were killed and many more injured in the ensuing panic and stampede. Now, the scenes were quite chaotic and heartbreaking, a nation mourning a familiar, polarizing leader while trying to hold the line between grief and safety. This is a devastating moment for Kenyan politics and a security flashpoint that warrants immediate critical scrutiny. So we will be analyzing this and more, and we have our guests with us, Dr. David Matsanga. He is a policy of African affairs analyst, and we also have Moses Wambui, CEO ISS Africa, and he will be joining us as well. But let's begin with Dr. Matsanga. Thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you very much for inviting me on this somber day, on the day when we mourn an African enigma, a hero, a Pan-African.
Thank you for joining. Now, we know that Mr. Odinga spent years in prison without trial. Speak to us. How did that personal sacrifice forge his political identity, and how essential was his tenacity in ensuring that Kenya finally embraced multi-party democracy? And I remember you did say at one point that you were a close friend.
Yes, I have been a close friend of His Excellency Raila Amolo Odinga since 1982, when I was working with the government of Dr. Milton Obote in Uganda. What happened in 1982 in Kenya gave a rise to us knowing one of the people whom we did not know, that in future he would be one of the most well-renowned, well-loved, loved by millions and millions of people across in Africa, Raila Amolo Odinga. I have, since then, when I came out into London in exile, we continue to meet in many places in Sweden, in Norway, in Paris, in London. We have struggled for the liberation of Africa, for the freedom, justice, human rights. Raila has been at the forefront. Africa has lost a giant. Africa has lost a man who never hesitated to tell it off, to say this is too much. Any country in Africa has failed Raila, a peacemaker, a man who could stand up and say many things, and Africa could listen.
All right, now let's talk about the 2010 Constitution, which we know is a monumental achievement, particularly for its devolution of power, Dr. Matsanga. Beyond his high-profile campaign, how successful was he in using the power-sharing mechanism to truly address the deep-seated ethnic and regional economic disparities that he campaigned against?
Raila has always played what we call a redemption strategy. In summary, any scholar will tell you a redemption strategy means reconciliation, truth-telling, accountability, and above all, healing process. Every time Raila's election has been either rigged or it has been tampered with, or he has gone to court to win back elections, he has always played a pivotal role in analysis, in coming back to create peace. So in doing so, he removed the barrier. Raila is the only politician in Kenya who transcended beyond the tribes, who spoke for masses, millions and millions of masses across East Africa, looked at Raila for a voice including my own country, Uganda. In those days when we were having a single party system, Raila stood by us to force for a multi-party system. Therefore, one man who did not look at Kenya's ethnicity is Raila Amolo Odinga, loved by millions and millions of people. Even when he did not win elections at all, my dear sister, he came back, he was still loved until he makes peace again, works with the government. He does all this and says, okay, we keep Kenya. That is the man we love, and that's the man I loved up to the end. That's why millions are crying out today morning.
Oh, all right. Now, I'm being told that Moses is back. Moses, thank you for rejoining. Now, speaking of Raila Odinga, after the disputed 2007 election triggered violence that killed over 1,300 people, Odinga accepted the prime minister post, right? Was this act of stepping back from his claim his greatest moment of selflessness, or was it the first major compromise that diluted his reformist credentials?
Raila Odinga is a man of many heads. He's a guy that, when you talk about Raila Odinga, he's more than life, because in Kenya, he's a guy who has never won an election, but he has remained to be the guy to be looked upon when you talk about politics in Kenya. Many of the people that talk about Raila Odinga will face him either as an formidable enemy or a foe. Others look at him as a guy who comes out as the compromise person to unite the Kenyans. But when you talk of Raila, he's a man of since 1982. You look at a guy who is more of a selfless guy. But to say more, you find he's synonymous with democracy, he's synonymous with fighting for human rights. But again, when you step back and look at Raila, there are other areas that come out, like the 1982 coup, the 2007 election, violence. So he's more of a controversial guy than than a guy who you want to not to think about in terms of politics. Okay,
now let's go to the 2018 handshake. Let's talk about that, which ended his rivalry, with Kenyatta, but it left the opposition without direction. Speak to us. Did that move, seen by many supporters as a compromise of the liberation cause, erode the institutional strength of dissent that he had spent his entire life building? Still on you, Moses.
One angle, it is a guy who had built a legacy since 1982 as a guy who was fighting for the people's right. But since the handshake, that is of 2018, and the handshake of 2018 and the current situation whereby he died when he was working with what we call the broad-based government, you find that his legacy seemed to elude him. He died a man who is like a guy who had struggled, and then all of a sudden he diluted the legacy by joining hands with maybe Uhuru Kenyatta and currently with William Ruto.
Okay, so what about the fact that he lost, people say he lost every election but won Kenya's democracy? Where does the true weight of this legacy lie? Moses?
He lost every election, but what they're saying, he won the Kenyans' heart. If you look at in terms of fight for democracy, you will agree with me that no man has done more than Raila in Kenya in terms of fighting for democracy. But this is the but, and here you come in. Towards the end of his legacy, or towards the end of his time in Kenya politics. Maybe he became fatigued, or he became disillusioned by the fact that he never won the election and thought that he was fighting for people who are not grateful to him. So I think at that point, he chose now to become either the man or either for himself rather than for the Kenyans towards the end. But all through, the legacy has been that he is the man who has fought for the Kenyan.
All right, now before we go to, the incidents that happened while he was lying in state, let's come back to you, Dr. Matsanga. Odinga was the essential charismatic force that held together different ethnic political interests. We've actually, stated that earlier. But does his absence now guarantee the collapse of unified opposition along those regional lines?
People say it depends on who is accusing Raila Amolo Odinga, who wants to accuse him of having betrayed or not. Raila stands above petty differences. Raila is a man who could stand up and put the nation first. In all this, if you look at the history, all the history of Raila is, at the end of the day, he ends up not banning Kenya, not destroying Kenya. At least Kenya comes back and builds itself again. That is the man who, I said, any expert who has read conflict resolution like me to the last riot on planet Earth, I'll tell you, he used what we call a redemption strategy. He's a man who finally says, okay, it is okay. The nation is bigger than petty differences. Two, he hasn't left the opposition in Kwagamaya state. There is opposition in Kenya, but it depends from which part of opposition you are talking about. The current opposition is purely an opposition which is centered on personality more, zero agenda, zero focus. If you are looking at opposition of the current former deputy president of Ruto, who was Ruto's deputy president impeached, that one has no direction and will not have direction at all. These Kenyans will not want to divide themselves to a level that they go to petty differences that have sprung as a result of little money or money not given here or somebody. You see, that type of politics is what is killing Africa. Raila rose above. I played a very pivotal role last, wearing this same shirt in Addis Ababa, and I'm here right now in the same capital. I wore this shirt when I went to campaign for Raila Odinga to become the AU chairperson, and I've lost a person. He could speak. I have gone with him for peace missions in Monoroe, in Ivory Coast. We were the last people to depart on a plane with Thabo Mbeki. Our plane was numbered 2 last,
okay.
And he went ahead.
Dr. Matsanga,
so when you look at that, Raila is formidable person. He left a legacy that nobody will shake. The smaller problems that were there cannot carry.
Dr. Matsanga,
Yes.
I'm so sorry for cutting you short, but I'm told that our third guest, Dika Mungu Daniel, a lawyer and political analyst, has actually joined us as well. Thank you for joining us, Dika. Let's have your thoughts on who Raila Odinga is, because some have actually said they proclaimed him as a pan-Africanist and an AU figure. He was a moral voice on the continent. But beyond Kenya, speak to us. What is the immediate tangible loss, the immediate tangible loss for democratic movements and conflict mediation across East Africa and the wider continent with his voice now silenced?
Thank you very much, Dashan, and thank you for the rest of the speakers. Allow me first and foremost join the rest of the world in mourning a great son of the soil, a great statesman, a figure father who stood up for his nation and was able to fight for democracy, was able to rally the nation together at all times, and an individual who truly gave his life for his country and stood up at all times to ensure that the country comes first before any other thing. It's a sad moment in Kenya because we have lost a unifying figure, a figure who was ready to defend the country at every time, a figure who was ready to ensure that the country pulls together, even at a brink of destruction. Time and time again, election after election, Raila Amolo Odinga has come out as one singular individual who truly understood the need and the reason why a nation needed to speak and remain united. And I would want to even quote some of the words that he said that were very great to our nation. And he said that we would rather have a nation that is imperfect and have a nation that tries to become perfect rather than not have a nation at all. We've seen Kenya at very dangerous moments after each and every election period. But if there is one singular person, and I want to totally agree with Senior David Matsanga, that it is Raila Amolo Odinga, that when elections have been disputed, when the nation seems to be divided into tribal lines, it is him who always comes first, takes the first bullet and says, it is all of us to pull together. This is a character that I think many other African countries need to read and learn from. It is properly, one can clearly see that as Africa, there is a mood that revolution is sweeping across the entire continent. But nation after nation, it keeps sinking into violence, it keeps sinking into militarism. But then, here lies a man who's shown by example that there will be no need for a nation to be divided, that there will be no need for a nation rather sink into a point that it cannot serve itself or it cannot be served into a point of just men and women being able to sit down and decide the future of the country. I am lucky because I come from a generation that was able to live and witness a great man who lived and dedicated his life fully to serving the country. And across the world, that is the same feeling, because you can actually be able to see that many people across the globe are mourning His Excellency Raila Amolo Odinga. And I would want to appreciate the government of His Excellency William Samoei Ruto for giving His Excellency Raila Amolo Odinga a befitting send-off, a send-off of a statesman. And I just want to rally and also appreciate the people across the globe for their heartwarming condolences and standing with the country.
Well, Adika, just before we go ahead, I think we've actually run out of time, so I'll give each of you 1 minute, and you came really towards the end of the conversation. So I'll give each of you 1 minute to share your final thoughts. So let's begin with Moses. Moses, your final thoughts? A minute, please.
Thank you. My final thoughts about Raila Amolo Odinga will be the last tribal chief or tribal king. You know, the politics of legend, you know, he was more of a legend. So you find that in Kenya, the politics now, with the demise of Raila Amolo Odinga, the landscape of Kenyan politics is going to change totally. So that at the end of the day, it is about now what you bring, what is it that you can offer the Kenyans, rather than being a person who coalesces around a certain legend or a certain region. You know, a legend is like you have that kind of Catholic following. And going forward, I don't think that is the end. So Kenyans are going to look more into what you can bring, what you can talk about, what substance you bring on the table. Raila Odinga has fought for democracy. Raila Odinga is more of a statesman, but the bat, and that is where I go.
All right, thank you so much, Moses. Thank you, Moses.
Thank you very much.
Yes, let's come to Dr. Matsanga. 1 minute, please.
Giving me this opportunity, I mourn a gallant son of Africa, a defender of democracy, a fighter of human rights, a defender of Pan-Africanism, the enigma of Africa. There is nobody, again, to compare in Kenyan politics. Nobody will ever have a crowd like Raila Odinga. Raila Odinga transcended beyond the tribes, beyond the nations. There is no nation in Africa that has never been touched by Raila Odinga. Go ye further, go ye Baba, go prepare the way. You have left Dr. Matsanga still on the job. I will continue with my Pan-African job. I will continue to make sure. And I want to thank President William Ruto for giving a fitting standoff to His Excellency, the Right Honorable Prime Minister. Thank you very much. Raila died a peacemaker. Raila died a man who understood Dr. Matsanga's redemption strategy, the healing process. Whatever people can say, but it depends on the tribe where you come from. And that is where what Raila did not like it. We want to speak as African. We want unity of purpose. And that is what we are doing.
Okay.
That is what we stand for. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Go ye, prepare the way for us.
Thank you. Now, let's hear from you as well, Adika. 1 minute, please.
My parting shot would be that the king has died, but the crown must live on. And the crown that I would want my country and the entire Africa and the world to remember is the crown that we need to build our nations beyond every other thing. That we need to put our countries before every other thing. And I want to call the world and Africa in totality to learn something from Raila Amolo Odinga. He was a statesman. He was a man who clearly understood what democracy was all about. He was a man who truly dedicated and devoted his life in fighting for social justice. And that is what today I would want the entire world and Africa to always remember, that there will be no need for us to divide ourselves election after election. But we need to sit down together as patriots, people who after competing in an election, let's always find channels and means of sitting down and building our country, rather than dividing it into fighting battles and fighting divisions that destroyed their own countries and left for nothing. So mine would be a rallying call to the African country, to the African leaders, to the African young men and women out there, that here lies an example, that as much as he is gone, he is here with us for us to learn, for us to look for his examples and build our countries. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time. David Matsanga, Adika Mungu, and Moses Wambui. We appreciate you. Thank you.